everybody, welcome back to my studio. This is Emma on another beautiful spring morning here in the UK. Hello to you wherever you are in the world. It's lovely to have you here. Thank you so much for joining me here. Thank you for all your subscriptions. It's lovely to see the numbers rolling up. Sharing what we're doing here with more people is just so lovely to know that that's happening. Thank you for all your lovely comments. Thank you for all the chat that we're having. I love it when you ask me a question, if you need help with anything. You know, I mean, it's really like, I was thinking it's a bit like in the supermarket when they say, do you want any help with your packing? And I want to say, no, but could you come home, please, and put it all away in the cupboards and then work out what's for tea, please? And while you're there, could you just run around with the Hoover? You know, it's that kind of thing. I just wanted to say, look, I don't need help with my packing, but the rest of my life could do with a hand. Anyway, yeah, that's just me. My sense of fun just pops out from time to time. And yeah, that's what life is all about, really, is fun. I think we all get so serious and so bogged down in all the troubles and tribulations that we forget that actually there's lots of simple fun to be had and pleasure in little things, whether it's creating something like we're doing here, whether it's doing something nice like making a nice meal for your family, something like that. Really simple things make me very happy these days, I have to say. It's like almost with all that's gone on, I think my world kind of shrank down quite a lot, and it's made me really focus on what's really important to me. I don't know whether you found that the same, that actually some very simple pleasures in life now are to be had for no money, just looking out at what you've got around you. Sometimes when I walk through my local town, you know, you can see all sorts of beautiful things. You can see interesting stonework or a bit of paint that's quite interesting because it's kind of all flaky and rusty things. And then if you find little flowers growing in the pavement or in a wall where they're not really supposed to grow, I think, you know, these little things, or a smile on somebody's face. I often quite like to go down the street and just smile at random strangers because I think it sort of just surprises people to see somebody smiling, because so many people go around, don't they, with big frowny faces. And I think, well, come on, we've got to lift this up somehow. We have to be proactive in a very simple way if we can, and it just lifts, you know, the pleasure of going shopping and having to get your food in and all the mundane things that we sort of take for granted. Well, aren't we lucky to be doing them at all? That's my other kind of thought on that subject. Anyway, that's not really what I wanted to start talking about. I was wondering what I was going to talk about this morning, and that sort of all just came out like a thing. So apologies. Anyway, that's just thoughts of me sitting here on my sofa. So we're going to get on with this lovely piece today. We're nearly there. We're nearly at the end, and that'll be quite sad because we'll have to start something new, and I have no idea what that's going to be. At this point, I don't even know how this is going to work out. We're just going to have to see, aren't we? So please come and join me over on my table, and we'll have a look at how this piece is, you know, where it's got to from last week, and we'll see where it's going to go and how it's going to end up. Well, let's find out. Okay, so this is where we're at now. Beautiful neat edges, well, you know, neatish edges, really nice edges there, making this it kind of frames what I've done so far. And the next thing I'm working on now is these stamens, and originally I had them cut for goodness knows why. I think because the original cuts I did were quite short and fat and wide, and so I just kind of trimmed them down and put them on, and I thought, well, actually that's a bit silly really, because I've got a stamen that's cut in half. How's that going to work? That's going to be a faff. So basically what I've done is I've cut myself some nice long stamens. So these are now all pinned in position, and I've actually added an extra one in because that gives me 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. It gives me 9. I think I had 8 before, and as I've said previously, I think it's good to have odd numbers of things. Don't ask me why. It just stops it being like a rigid thing. It just keeps it more free-flowing if you've got odd numbers. Something to do with the pattern and the effect it has in your eye. I don't know, something like that. So the next thing to do is to look at the other end of these stamens, and we will look at that now. I'll just move you across a little bit. Let's bring you over. Here we go. So this is what I had originally kind of come up with when I was feeling into it and just messing about. Sometimes it's really helpful just to plonk something on, just so it's no longer in your head going, oh, I don't know how to do that. I plonked something on and I thought, oh, that's quite fun. But I've been thinking about it and it's not how I want them to be, I don't think. I think they need to be a little bit different. I feel as though they need to be, perhaps the anther shape is what I've got in my head. And so that's what I'm going to do next. So sometimes I make samples. You've seen me make samples on here before. And what I've done is I've played around with this as an idea. I kind of had in my head this kind of, it's like an, I don't know what shape you call it. It's not really meant to be that bent. That was just the way it came out. I was playing around with whether I wanted things straight or wobbly. And what I like is this kind of quilted effect. So it's got some thicker curtain interlining. I actually have some wadding, or you could use wadding, whatever you've got in. It's just a thicker version of what I've used under here. And I've just done little circles, and it's got a piece of the yellow fabric on top. So if I just take that away, we'll just have a little look at that. It's not quite the right shape, but it's that sort of idea that you've got this nice stamen and then you've got these shapes. So the other thing I've done, okay, that was stage 1. Stage 2 was making a sample like this to see kind of what it would look like on the background and how I might perhaps go about doing it, because it's got to be something that you can get all the edges tucked in neatly. I don't want any white of the wadding showing through. So there's kind of technical questions to be answered. I do like a bit of a technical challenge. And my other thing is, so if we just come up to the top now with this little fella, and I'll show you what I'm talking about it up here, is because if they're going to go in this semicircle around here to match the set of semicircle down at this end of the black bit, if you like, they're going to stick up above there. So to make it just with wadding and fabric isn't going to be enough, because that's going to be far too floppy. It's got to be able to stand up, you know, in its own right. So we'd have, you know, something like that going on around the corner. Maybe I could put that one there. Maybe I could put that one there. But you can see how it's no good stitching it down because it's got to be freestanding. So anyway, I'll show you what I've come up with next. So this is my third one that I've made, and it's interesting how things evolve. Once you start messing about and you realise what it is you want and how it needs to work for you. But if you don't start, that doesn't happen. So I had to be brave and start cutting and playing and stitching, and so it's evolved into this little piece here. So it's got the tearaway stabilizer on the back, and it's got a layer of fabric, a layer of wadding, and another layer of fabric to try and make so that when it's there like that, you don't see the wadding. Now I've failed slightly there because the wadding's sticking out a bit, so I'll have to make sure I stitch all the way around properly so that doesn't happen. I don't want any leaking. I don't want any wadding leaking out because that will spoil the effect. So I'm going to, got another piece here. I want to cut these to the size that I want, and I've got some lovely fabric here that I have ironed, because this fabric is awful. It creases like nobody's business. I think it must be, I don't know, it's viscose or something, but it creases like nobody's business. And I'll cut the shapes out, and I will then put a big piece of tearaway underneath and stitch around them. I'll just show you my curtain interlining. This is what I'm using as wadding basically, or batting. I buy this because it's cheaper than buying quilt wadding. I mean, I used to buy quilt wadding. I've bought it in the past, and this is cotton and this is nice soft, but it's thicker than what I've used as the background to this. So if you can see, it's almost like, I think this is sort of fluffier. It's got a different weave to it. It actually shreds a bit more because it's got this sort of thick woven yarn in it. So it's a different quality to the stuff that I use normally as my background. This is very smooth and doesn't shred so much. So I'm just going to cut this into some shapes, and I'm just doing this by eye. I'm just going, ooh, what shape shall we cut it? So that they're not all going to end up the same. So I'm not making a template, I'm not drawing it out. I'm just being reckless and cutting it. And they may be different sizes, and that's absolutely fine. We'll just see what we're going to cut out next. So we'll Cut another one for up there. I think there's going to be 5 of them in the end. Makes such a lovely noise when you're cutting it out. I think I might put that one there, possibly. Slightly bigger. I think. That's another one. Such a lovely morning today. The birds are singing away. I don't know if you can pick them up on the camera or not, but it's a beautiful spring morning here. I think that one's a bit too big. Oops. Okay, right. There we go. We can just about see them all, but you can see what I'm trying to do is get this nice line going round. Right, so I have now stitched those down and I think they look much better. I quite like the texture. I like the way that the double layering has given this very kind of, I don't know what you'd call it, sort of a crinkly look to it. I rather like that. It's very textured. Anyway, it's made a difference, that's the important thing, and it's made the colour brighter. So I'm going to pop these on here. They're not any particular order. It's about sort of roughly where they might go and trying to make sense of it. So just kind of pop those on there. Now that's beginning to look like something, isn't it? I think that's kind of working for me. I hope it looks good to your eye too. Obviously we all see things differently. My other thought about this is how to actually stitch these on. I don't want to really go around the outside and make it look all kind of really outliney, if you know what I mean. It's already got quite a lot of stitching around the outside to keep the fabrics together. I'm kind of thinking whether I just hand stitch it down a little bit. And my other thinking is, do I want to put something underneath like this, for example, to give it a bit of lift, because I'm just wondering whether it would be quite nice to have them looking as though they're kind of lifting off the surface. I think as though there really are, you know, stamens coming out of the flower. And so I'm just going to have a fiddle with that. I'm just wondering whether to, as I say, put that underneath and then perhaps stitch a little bit around it here and there, perhaps hand stitch around it. I don't know what you think. You can let me know in the comments. I just feel as though, or whether I do some of them like that and then let them sort of disappear and become less obvious, if you like, as the eye kind of goes up there. So, you know, it's all of these choices that you make, isn't it, when you're making something. And there's absolutely no right and no wrong. It's totally, what I say is what pleases your eye. Nobody else's, and other people can have an opinion, of course, and it's lovely to have, you know, the comments that you leave me. I really appreciate, because they're not necessarily seeing it how I see it, and I really like that. I like to have a discussion about that. But I'm just thinking whether I could even just not put that underneath and just try and stitch these like down one side a bit and then down the other side a bit, so that they kind of have a bit of freedom to do what they'd like to do, so that they're not completely attached. They kind of possibly need to be a bit attached down there possibly, and then coming up a bit. It gives them a bit, it makes them a bit less kind of just, you know, there you go, that's your stamen, that's your anther. So I'm going to have a fiddle with that and see what I come up with, and I'll show you it when I've done, because I need to just go and have a little think about it. My other thinking is at this end, I don't know if you agree with me, that they're quite blunt. They're quite blunt, some of these. I didn't taper them, and they're all different shapes and sizes and things, and I was thinking that what I'm going to do is take a little bit of this under fabric, another little strip or two of this, and just kind of blend it in a little bit. So if I kind of cut this bit here, say, whoop, this is what I like. It's like the finessing. It's the finessing. It's the final details. It's looking at it and stepping back and going, well, you know, what if I do this? What if I do that? What if I just simply do a little bit of something extra that, oh, sorry, these bits don't all stick to my fingers. They do. They kind of get everywhere, man. Let's just see if we can, you know, kind of fudge it so they look a bit more organic, as though they are just emerging from this base like that. I think that's much better. So I'll just pin those two on because they work quite well there. I'll pin them on now while I make that choice. It makes it much less blunt, and as I say, if I can attach these down in such a way that they're not quite so obvious, if you like, then that would be quite nice, wouldn't it? So let me do that, and I will come back to you when it's all done, and I'll show you. Okay, so I'm thinking the best way to show you this now is if I just stand here and hold it. There we go. You have to imagine it's on the wall against a nice white surface, and it's really standing out. And I have to say I'm really pleased with it. I've had my moments, I've had my doubts, I've had my ups and downs with it when I've gone, oh my goodness. And then I've kind of kept going, and I think stitching the anther bits on as a sort of a semi-3D, semi-relief, or whatever you want to call it, I don't know what you call it really technically, they're sort of standing up, and I think that makes it really more exciting. It gives a bit of energy to it. So I'm going to put it down and let you have a closer look at it. So there we go. Goodness me. This, I think it's one of the biggest pieces I've done, certainly the biggest piece with this amount of stitching on it. And I'm really, as I say, I'm really excited about it because of these bits. These bits have just really done me good, done me proud. I think if I just had them flat on the surface, it would have been fine, it would have been okay. But making these pieces, so if they'd just been flat, these anthers, I think it would have been very nice. It would have been very civilised and very, you know, a good piece. But I think making them stand out like that, you'll have to let me know whether you agree or not. It's entirely what I'm seeing and what you might see. I just feel that it's kind of giving it a bit of energy to it, because the rest of it is very flat, and as you know, I really do like texture. It's got a texture here. I've left this fairly textured on this bit, and because I embellished it and then I only stitched some bits of it, so it's actually got a nice texture to it. I'm making the lace doubled up, that gave texture to that as well. So, and the colouring, it's the colouring for me that does it. It's these contrasts and this vibrancy that it's going on with it. It's really as though the light is really, the sunshine is there really. It's as though the sun is really just shining on it, which makes me feel very happy and very warm. And I'm loving these blending of the colours and the background. So I've got to work out how on earth I'm going to frame it. I'm quite keen with these pieces that I'm making at the moment to let them be what they are. I'm quite keen not to frame them up. I want them to stand out on the wall on their own. So I might be putting a back on with some kind of a rod in the back to hold it up and keep it flat. keep it straight across the top. But we shall see. At the moment, I'm just excited to have finished it. Hooray! So I'm going to say cheerio for now. I'm going to be back on the 3rd of May. I'm actually taking a week off, and I'll see you again 3rd of May back in my studio for some more fabric excitement and fun and exploration. And have a lovely time in the meantime. I'll see you very soon. Bye for now. Ba ba da ba ba.